Breaking news. Spider-Man's out of the MCU. Wait, before you click off, this is totally different than the news story that I did. I'm just telling you.
Hold on. This is way different.
Well, I'm just telling you, like, I'm going to recap a little bit, but it's not the same thing you already watched, so please stay with us. Don't leave me alone holding my wiener.
Well, yeah.
What did you think when you heard this news?
Yeah, so I thought it was like a joke or something at first, to be honest, you know, because the thing is with the MCU, they are, compared to our favorite DCEU, it is just stability, you know, with the MCU. So
it is predictability sometimes too, but that, you know, stability,
consistency. So to see this, it's crazy. The memes have been great, I should say.
They have been fantastic.
Glorious. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is what it feels like to be a DCEU fan. Where, I mean, we're basically, you know, with Spider-Man, we're seeing where essentially all of that build up with Tony Stark and the establishment of the MCU, and we even talked about him being like the new Tony Stark.
Yeah, he's you know, for the next Tony Stark.
Right. So
they even say it right there.
Him taking over, and now it's like, well, now what? You know? So
what's going to happen there?
He was the new favorite. So I mean, it's tough. It's really just, honestly, it's really sad news, because it was exciting to think of what he was going to do as the poster boy, kind of watch him. He's still going to have a ton of films with Sony, obviously, so it's fine, and it's interesting to see maybe what they'll do with Venom, I guess.
And it doesn't mean there's no hope.
No, it's not like this is set in stone, but it's not in a good spot.
Yeah, why don't you recap a little bit of what I talked about, just so it's not me running through it again, which, you know, like with the whole news of Sony leaving.
Yeah.
Like taking Spider-Man back from the MCU.
Right. So essentially Disney wanted a new deal with Sony, just financing wise, and what was originally reported was that they wanted 50-50 profits wise from the movies. So they wanted to basically split everything in half.
Including paying for it.
Right.
I think that's worth mentioning.
Right. And then said, and Sony was like, well, no, we're not even going to counter offer that. That's blasphemous. And they never did, and then just kind of died like that. But there is an update to the story that we did want to kind of dive into here in this podcast, which was that before, media outlets were all saying, obviously, that Disney asked for 50% of the profits, but new reports are coming out saying that Marvel only asked for 30%, which is obviously a substantial difference.
Way less. When you're talking about billion?
The magnitude of the money that they're making off these films, it's insane. So, I mean, that's a huge difference, given it's still... For a property that Sony owns, I guess I could see why they're still like, probably not, but like...
Yeah, because they do own it.
Yeah, but to not even counteroffer that is still like, well, I don't
easily
know.
Could have said like, hey, how about this? How about we give you 12% of the total box office revenue? That means you're going to make like $100, you know, some $1 million off the movie versus what you're doing right now. And you still get to do everything you want and use him in your movies, and we get the fans' goodwill. It's a win-win.
Right.
Along with, yeah, he's Spider-Man and he has brand recognition, but right now the Spider-Man, like the Sony Spider-Man movies, can also benefit from the MCU. Like, I think everybody's looking at it... well, first off, everyone's looking at it like Sony's just straight up the bad guy completely, which is not entirely the case. I think they're more in the wrong, personally. But I don't think they're the only one, because, which I'll get into. But there's a lot of nuance to the story, especially because when you're looking at this much money, and we found this on comicbook.com, there's a lot of numbers into the details of that, because the budget for Far From Home, that was $160 million, which, by the way, I thought it was more than that.
I was gonna say, that seems low.
It is pretty low, especially for how the movie looked. So, and you obviously double that for advertising. That comes close to anywhere from 300 to 330 million. I would actually say it might be a little more advertising for a Marvel movie, because they pump it out like crazy. So you might add $10-15 million on their extra for marketing.
Sure.
That you wouldn't on a normal movie. So if you subtracted that from the box office, that, you know, that obviously would bring it down to $790 million profit. Which is insane still.
Yeah.
So a 30% cut of that would be $237 million for Marvel. And $553 million still for Sony. And they didn't want to go for this. Again, they could have counteroffered and said like, hey, how about you take 5 or 10% less than that? And Marvel might have gone for it. You don't know. But this is kind of an interesting, weird... It's so weird. Because both of these are media juggernauts. That's kind of the problem here is, if you look at it from the one side, if you look at it from Sony's side, Disney did not need to renegotiate. Disney doesn't need that money. Like, they're making billions off the MCU. They don't need this. If you look at it from Disney's side, they put all the work into pretty much making the movie, doing all the casting, and I know a lot of the money was coming from Sony before. It wasn't co-financed. It was, Sony was paying for that, but then Sony gave them the money and walked away, and they did it, pretty much. So for them now to say, well, fine, we'll do everything and take all the money, that does come across as really greedy to people from Sony.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's. I think the reason the story has gotten so, big, too, I mean, obviously it's a Spider-Man that I think very high majority of people really like this Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland's a great Spider-Man. I think his films have been great. He's doing a really good job. But also, it feels kind of personal because there have been actual comments from, Tom Holland's dad and from, Stan Lee's daughter. And also, I think I saw that Tom Holland is no longer following Sony.
Oh, wait 1 second here. That's fake news.
It is fake
news. Because we were looking into that, too. Because a lot of people are reporting on that.
Yeah.
Nobody can find evidence that he ever did follow Sony.
Oh, okay.
And he wasn't cast by Sony. He was cast by Marvel.
Oh, okay.
So it makes sense that he wouldn't have, an overwhelming loyalty to Sony anyway. But so far, Tom Holland's kind of stayed in the dark a little bit on it, as far as making comment, which...
makes sense for me.
I don't know why he would make comment, because he's in a weird position where he can ride it out. Maybe they fix things. Or maybe he has to do it outside of the MCU, but he still gets to play a character he loves. Or he can talk out, and maybe somehow they find a way to axe him. Look at Andrew Garfield. I mean, I'm not saying he was a good Spider-Man. Good actor, not a good Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But he got axed when he didn't show up to a press meeting, and it embarrassed the Sony executives.
That's why I didn't even know that's what happened.
That's why he got cut. That's been reported on in the past too, is that basically Andrew Garfield was supposed to fly out to Japan and go to this event where they would announce more Spider-Man stuff, and he was going to be there in Japan, and he said he was sick and he stayed in his hotel room, and the Sony executives were so pissed off, especially I believe the president of the company at the time, which don't hold me to that one, but I know the executives at Sony were, and they were like, well, let's not deal with this anymore. And they just were like, fine, we can do it without him.
Jeez, man.
So it's Sony's kind of pretty reactionary with some of this stuff. They're just ready to jump at it. You can even see it with Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. As soon as they rushed Raimi to make 4, and he said, I can't do it in that time, I'm just going to quit. They said, okay, piss off, we've got a reboot. They went with the reboot. They really just care about making the money out of Spider-Man. That's why they bought him. They're a business. I mean, I don't really blame them from that, but...
Well, I think I saw that Far From Home is now their highest grossing film of all time.
It is.
It's number 1. So it's... They're probably going to be even... Well, they are. They're more defensive of it than ever. Mm-hmm. It's their best property. So, I mean, it makes sense. But at the same time, I feel like it also... a good chunk of the reason why Far From Home did so well is, the foundation that the MCU kind of built it off of. First appearance in Civil War. Then you get to Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame. I mean, and then obviously Far From Home. A lot of that was built from the MCU.
Yeah, not just Spider-Man.
No. So, I mean,
he came in an MCU, crossover integral story, Civil War.
Right.
That was not a Spider-Man story.
No.
He came in the middle of a conflict, and he was built up sort of out of the results of that conflict.
Exactly.
Out of the results of the Sokovia Accord. In a way, it's Tony trying to fix his mistakes through a young protege that he sees as someone who can be better than him. He says in Homecoming, he builds Peter up because Peter, maybe he's not quite as smart as Tony. We don't really know yet. He's also not an adult yet. But he can make his own suits like Tony could. The difference is he has superpowers and a sense of responsibility, and he's not even an adult. Tony was 40 before he got any of that.
Or a billionaire,
Yeah.
which is important to note too. I
think
But like with that, like, so for Sony to kind of just say, well, we're gonna separate from that and just do our own thing. Not saying that it won't make a ton of money. I'm sure it obviously will, because people are attached to the character. But that's what I mean. It feels so personal because everyone seems to be chiming in and is like actually like really upset about this. Because I don't remember anyone caring this much when Andrew Garfield was kind of ixnayed. You know what I mean?
one cared.
No one cared.
I mean, Nate cared.
Well, yeah, but that's it though. No.
Yeah.
And I mean, for it just to be like such a huge like personal feeling thing. And obviously, we kind of wanted to get into the comments that like Stan Lee's daughter even said too. So I'll just read the quote directly. She said, "Whether it's Sony or someone else's, the continued evolution of Stan's characters and his legacy deserves multiple points of view." She went on to say that when my father died, no one from Marvel or Disney reached out to me. From day one, they have commoditized my father's work and never shown him or his legacy any respect or decency. In the end, no one could have treated my father worse than Marvel and Disney's executives.
I want to point out that if you're listening to the full podcast when this is released, maybe there was an update to this. Or if you're listening to the news video, maybe there was an update to this because it could come out a day or two later, or maybe not at all if we decide to not split it off. But this makes sense to me why she said this. And I don't want people jumping down my throat because of that, because I want to explain it. I'm not saying that she's in the right. But you have to understand her father did recently die. Obviously, she's emotional about it. This was her dad. And the way that she saw it, especially after all that news of him being exploited for money, you know, like with things like, did you remember the news about like he was being kind of carted around and like made money off of when he shouldn't have been traveling? And they called him a vulnerable adult even. Like, it was taking advantage of a vulnerable older adult. And so this is what she sees. Like, she sees him in all these Disney movies, and obviously no one in Disney thought to stop this from happening, right? Because it kept happening. It wasn't just Disney, it was also going to conventions. But still, like, all these movies, he's appeared in cameos of all of them. Even the Sony movies. That's what she's seen. So, like, I get if people are emotional and, like, upset about her saying stuff like this about Disney, especially right after this split. But, I mean, emotionally, it makes sense from her point of view why she would see it this way. I mean, I can even think of it, too, like, on a personal level, like, with my sister. Like, this is something, it's, like, just totally different. But, like, when my dad passed and, like, my sister was around for my dad and then just gone, you know, like, with me and my mom, it felt, like, really personal. It was like, well, this guy's dead, and, like, where were you? That's how she's seeing this, is, like, you took advantage of my father. Where are you now? So yeah, she doesn't have any sympathy for Disney. I can't say I fully blame her if that's how she's seen the situation.
Yeah, and that's definitely like looking at it from her perspective. And I think it's hard for the public. I think it's going to be hard for the general public to, I guess, see her point. I think directly, just because of all of the thank you stands and like all of the, you know, just memorial stuff in the films that they've shown. You know, like there was a lot of what you would almost see as like respect for what he did for the MCU and just for like movies in general, really, like the superhero genre.
Yeah, on paper there was.
And exactly. And I think that's what it is. It's on paper, but like you said, looking at it from more of like a, not, you know, I guess the rest of the iceberg is kind of important too. And it's harder to do because on the surface, like I said, you see all this thank you Stan's in all of the movies. Like they wanted to show like, oh, this is what he did, here's his work, link it back to him. But there's deeper stuff at play too. So.
Yeah, and it goes both ways, like you said, because also you could make the argument that Stan Lee being in those movies, as much as we all like Stan Lee, probably didn't drive sales. Like, people would have seen a Spider-Man movie with or without a Stan Lee cameo. So I don't really know if it's fully that Disney saw it as them exploiting him, but that's what it looked like to her. Especially, I'm sure, after all that stuff with, you know, her father being dragged around and kind of emotionally abused and shoved into stuff he shouldn't have been in. Like, there is two sides to this, and that's what makes it so rough. Because I don't really know who I'd agree with here. Like, I'm sure that Disney didn't think they were doing anything wrong with it. Like, they might have not even had any idea what that dude was doing to Stan Lee. Stopping my past self for just a second here, too, with a message from the future, I do think it's important to add into this whole discussion that we never found information that Stan Lee's previous manager was guilty of elder abuse. It was reported on widely that he was arrested and charged for it, and that's really where the story was dropped. He was charged for it. There was a restraining order put in place, so it seems that the court sided with the daughter, and it seems that that's where it was left, and nobody really said anything about it after, but this previous manager still maintains his innocence. So I think that's just important to add in here, just in case anybody gets the wrong idea that we're saying for sure this happened. We're working with the information we got.
Right.
That's very possible. But this is a fresh wound for her.
Well, that's what's tough, I think, is it's really about perspective with this, and I think the general public is, I mean,
it's not a personal thing for them.
No, and that's what I don't think it's going to be something where they're like, how dare you, Disney? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not going to be like a public outcry. It's
and
just
I don't
something
know
where
if
it's
it
like,
should be.
No, and that's just, this is how she feels. Like, I mean, and it's totally justified, I'm sure, like just from her perspective. But I mean, just to also kind of understand, I guess, that it's not going to be something where the whole general public is maybe going to understand.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be something where it's going to be like as much, not to be crude or like, not, it's not going to be as much sympathy, I guess. Yeah,
people don't
expect.
care.
Right.
And that's what I would say, I guess, too. Like, if you are a decent human being, which I would assume 99% of people are decent human beings or trying to be, and you, like, disagree with this and think, oh, this is awful, how could she say this? Just let it go, man. Like, just leave her alone. Let it go. Like, this woman just lost her dad. It doesn't matter. Like, don't take it personally. It's not an attack on you. It's not really even an attack on Spider-Man. It's her beef with how she sees her dad as being treated. Just take it as that. Take it as a person who saw their father in a different way as their father. The way you will never see Stan Lee. Because unless you are her, this was not your dad. Take it as that and walk away from it.
Right.
And if you agree with her, I would say pretty much the same thing. Like, because you're not going to dent Disney on it either. So just take it for what it is. It's a person's opinion.
Right. I think moving on to what Tom Holland's father actually said about the situation, just kind of a quick switch.
Another person's opinion.
Yes, yeah. And what he said, direct quote, was, "I know nothing about the impasse between Sony and Marvel. I have no inside track on such issues, but whatever is decided by the big suits at these big Hollywood studios, my hunch is that the show will continue. Too much at stake and too many dollars riding on it, and besides, everyone wants the same thing, namely Spider-Man on large screens, keeping people safe and entertained."
And he's right. I mean, he is right about that's what people want. At the same time, I think he's trying to see the positive in it. He is a big actor. It's not like he has no industry understanding. But like he said, he doesn't have insider information on this. From what Holland and others have said in interviews, it seems like a lot of things are even kept from cast as far as future plans because they just don't want him accidentally slipping out, especially Tom
Holland and Mark Ruffalo too.
Yeah. So I think that it's another person's opinion.
And
that's really what it is.
Honestly, I feel like it's kind of the opinion of the public.
Yeah,
to
like
be honest,
like just hold on. Yeah. Just wait a bit.
I mean, there are obviously people that are bummed out about it, but I think most people, their opinion is, well, honestly, there's so much money in the MCU, and how much money like having Spider-Man connected to that would bring in. I think comparatively, it might not be as big as I think it might be, but at the same time, Marvel's name with Spider-Man right now is pretty much a guaranteed $1 billion, it feels like. So, I mean, I agree with him, honestly. I'd say wait it out, see what happens.
Yeah,
but
I think it's okay to be disappointed, and I think that if you want to, I shared this on Twitter, which I'm sure you might have seen too, like, there are petitions going around about, like, sell Spider-Man back to Marvel. I don't think that'll ever happen, but if you want to, you could certainly sign something like that to show you're interested in MCU Spider-Man. I mean, I'm pretty sure they got the message, but it's just another way for you as the public to say, hey, look, I'm the one funding this anyway, because you can say it's Sony, but you're the one giving Sony the money to do this. So put your money where your mouth is. Show them what you want, and if this ends up not happening, I get you love Spider-Man, maybe don't go see the movie.
Right.
You can really wait until it comes out used at a used bookstore or anything and get it without giving them money. You can. We've done that before for games we want to play. I don't want to give anybody money for Aliens Colonial Marines. but I'll pay $5 for it used.
Well, you're the only one.
Yeah,
so.
I know, but I'm just saying, like this is the problem too with speaking out against this stuff is everybody's like so gung ho to like stick it to the man, the big corporation, but I'll still give him my money. It's funny. It reminds me of like Modern Warfare 3. Do you remember this? Way back, Modern Warfare 3 was coming out, and everybody was talking about how like boycott Activision. These are getting lazy. Let's not play it. The next day on Steam and Xbox 360 and PlayStation, everyone's friend list was like, so-and-so is playing Call of Duty on Dome. It's like everybody's. Right. It's like people are just so ready to stick it to them, but then they still just throw their money in there like, well, whatever. It's like you have to stand by it once in a while. There's so many other fun, entertaining things out there. You'll live without one of them. Yeah,
and I mean, for me, it's not even, like, for me personally, it doesn't even get to that point. At this point, it's like more of kind of the word that I like that Tom Holland's dad said is just an impasse, honestly. Yeah. I don't see this as a permanent thing.
No.
I don't see it as this as locked in stone. Like, never again will Spider-Man touch the MCU. I honestly don't even see it lasting that long at all.
No, it could be a month.
Maybe. I don't see it because, I mean... Like we've talked about, he's going to be... The plan was for him to be the poster boy of the MCU kind of moving forward. I mean, obviously, there's still Thor and those guys. But, I mean, I think that this isn't something that... It sucks. It's a bummer right now. And if it stays permanent, or at least for, like, years, I'd be shocked and obviously pretty disappointed. But I don't... Like I said, I'd be shocked if that happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't jump on that train right now either.
No.
But I think that if it ever did, that's where you kind of have to say, like, well, how much do I believe in this thing?
Yep.
Instead of just caving to it every time.
Right.
And I think as consumers, it's very easy for us to just cave because we want to be entertained. I mean, 100%. How many people are pissed off at Xbox One but bought it on launch day? It's just so easy.
It is, yeah.
So, another MCU piece of news. Man, this makes me so annoyed. In like different ways. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not at Brie Larson.
No, and it's, I mean, I kind of like yelling at Brie Larson into this microphone, you know?
Yeah, but... sometimes I do too, because she does a lot of stuff. It seems like she doesn't have social skills, like, or she purposely like really tries to make people mad, which I just don't really like people like that.
Yeah,
like just
this kind of antagonizes.
It's just borderline bullying.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sure, woman power and everything, because like that's kind of what it comes down to in a lot of ways, like, is people stand up for her because she's a strong female superhero lead, but Gal Gadot was that way and she's not a dick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right, yeah.
I just don't really get it.
Right.
But this whole story is that it's from an article written on an Instagram post. That's the point we're at as a society. We, in a podcast, are reporting on an article that is written about an Instagram post that's criticizing comments.
It's kind of a nightmare, to be honest.
I kind of feel like we're living in the darkest timeline. Like,
yeah, we are.
Basically, where is George Orwell right now when we need him?
We're in the end game now, dude.
Oh. So, Brie Larson held the hammer, Mjolnir, and she, in this post, insinuated that she's worthy to hold it. That's really all it is. Because in the actual post from Brie Larson, she didn't really say anything that was bad. I think she was making a joke about like all of the stuff about could Captain Marvel lift the hammer or not. Her post was not to be whatever, but told you I could lift it. And she did like an angel, like the smiling face with the angel. What do you call it on top?
The logo, kind of, or
the circle thing.
Oh, no idea, actually.
You don't remember this either?
No.
I feel really bad that it's the angel emoji, but I can't believe I don't remember what that's called. Like the halo.
Oh, it's a halo. Oh, yeah. That's okay.
So it had an angel halo emoji, and she was saying not to be whatever, but told you I could lift it. And it was just a joke. Michael B. Jordan reacted with crying, laughing emojis. He thought it was funny.
Yeah, honestly,
Human Torch.
I think it's kind of funny too, to be honest with you. Human Torch.
Yeah, he was Human Torch in Fan 4 Stick.
Don't you
Fan
dare.
4 Stick. Oh, listen. All I'm saying is Spider-Man out, Fan 4 Stick in. Let's go. Insert it right there.
That's treason, dude.
Let's do it.
You should be murdered, dude.
And Natalie Portman said, "Hey, muscles, easy with my hammer," and a bunch of heart emojis because she's becoming the Mighty
yeah.
Thor.
See, that's just
people are having fun.
It's a fun post. Yeah, I don't mind that, honestly.
And
I think
there was
fine.
a lot of comments under it saying, like, basically that the Captain Marvel, it was just debate about whether or not the Captain Marvel character was worthy to wield the hammer or not.
Which could
not
be
Brie
expected.
Larson. These comments are not really about Brie Larson. I'm sure there's a few, but I don't really think that it matters. Like,
I'm sure her intention was to also start a debate and just kind of laugh and read them. You know,
yeah,
like, honestly,
just
at
to
that
poke
point,
fun.
yeah.
But basically, this article from Complex, which I mean, it's Complex again, so not to pull the old the failing New York Times line from our pal, but that's kind of how it feels like to me. Is you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was from Joe Price at Complex, and he said haters are really trying to check Brie Larson for holding Thor's hammer. Now, I already don't like how this is phrased. It's almost like, my queen Brie Larson, how could you haters
She's
check
under
her?
attack.
Then queen. And it's like, I don't really understand this reaction to it, because already you're starting out on a bad foot. I don't think anyone who criticizes Brie Larson is a hater. By that contrast, anything that you, Mr. Price, have ever criticized, you're just a hater. Why should we take your opinion on it seriously? I'm sure you've criticized something in the past, even though you clearly have no criticism for Brie Larson or her behavior. Don't worry, someday I'm sure you'll marry Brie Larson and ride off into the sunset, and you'll be happily ever after with your white picket fence.
We can only hope so.
This whole thing is silly, and he went through it calling the people who implied that Larson couldn't lift Thor's hammer as trolls. This whole thing is just name calling. It's trolls, however, weren't happy with Larson implying she could lift Thor's hammer. Or later on, what else did he say? In response to some of the more fragile MCU fans complaining in the comments, and Scrubs.
Let's not forget
Is
about
Scrubs still an insult?
I mean, if you're 14, maybe, I don't know. I mean,
yes, it's also a hit show. Watch Scrubs.
Yeah, have some respect. Well, and also, I mean, he also says a number of men in the comments, and yes, it is all men complaining.
Can I say something real quick?
Target audience, dude? What?
Without starting a complete heat rally, like, men who talk this way when they're like, look, I'm not the problem, it's all other men. Have you ever heard of thou doth protest too much? That's just kind of what it reminds me of. It's like, I know it's a low blow, but I always think of that one guy who, like, really, he, like, hangs out with all the girls just because he wants to get laid and, like, wants to be popular, and the guys all beat the crap out of him. Yeah. Like, that's what I think. That's the type of guy I think of when I think of this. And as a kid who was bullied in high school, I feel uniquely qualified to point out another one. But it's just so silly. Like, and all of these, like, toxic feminists are jumping on it. And if you're a feminist, you're not toxic. But these are toxic feminists. Like, posts like, I one day hope to eliminate all dude bros. It's like, you're not a dude bro if you just don't like Brie Larson as an actor, or if you think that Captain Marvel is not worthy to pick up the hammer.
Contribute to a debate.
How dare you talk?
Disgusting.
You
dude.
disagree with me, so you are insert buzzword here.
Right.
It's the same thing, too, of like, well, I don't know if I agree with that character being portrayed as homosexual, because they never were. Like the Spider-Man thing. How dare you be a homophobe?
Dumbledore?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You are a homophobe.
Don't you do
that's the thing, though. It's like, it's just so... It's so easy to take a shot like this. Like, it would be like MMA fighters just going for the balls every time.
Yeah.
Every hit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a really easy, cheap low blow to try to throw a name out there. It's called ad hominem for a reason. Yeah. It's a logical fallacy, actually, that's been agreed upon for thousands of years. That you can't just levy an insult at a person's character and dismiss everything they ever say. You just can't do that. We've seen this done over and over again, and human beings are stupid, is really what it comes down to. Like, all of us, myself included. It's just easier to label someone something and walk away instead of try to debate them. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had a point about this, too. This is from a Instagram post. Actually, it's from Twitter. I'm silly because I see a little birdie.
No, it's all right.
I don't think we need to say who said it. Like, I think we can blur that out when I do it, because I don't want to send hate this person's way. But
no,
you wanted to talk about this.
Well, and not to like just pick apart certain like Twitter comments.
No, but
it's not
picking,
what we're doing.
It's picking apart arguments.
It's in an article too. Like he put
we
it.
consider ourselves intellectuals. I'm Socrates. You're Aristotle.
Yeah, it's great
Let's
to be
go.
here.
You're all idiots. No, I'm just kidding. But go ahead.
But yeah, no. So what bothered me as we were scrolling through this in preparation for said podcast, this got me a little whipped up because I saw
a little fragile there.
Little fragile, right? And I'm a man. Disgusting, dude.
Gross,
but I saw like, not to pick apart a certain comment because it's not fair, but he used
Please
in the article. So the comment says Brie Larson posts a picture of herself holding Mjolnir prop. Dude bros, Captain Marvel isn't worthy because she brags about how powerful she is and isn't selfless. And then it goes down to like Thor gets himself and his friends almost killed because he wanted to prove a point. Okay, listen. Then she shows a clip from the first Thor movie. And I'm picking this apart because it bothered me. So she shows a clip from the first Thor movie where he becomes unworthy of Mjolnir.
Because of those actions.
And gets sent to Earth. That's what happens.
I take from you your power, your fancy cape, your little buttons, and I send you to Earth.
That's what happened, man. And then, so that's stupid. And then Captain America throws a man on the road. The dude ran Captain America over with a car.
Not worthy, man.
And then he gently grabbed the man, tossed him onto the road, and not even really just tossed him, just grabbed him and said, "Get out," and hopped in the car.
Can we also mention that both of these things are out of context because that scene where Captain America throws a man on the road, he technically wasn't worthy at that time. Because that was during Civil War.
It was. Well, some people...
This is years later.
Some people do argue that he was worthy in Age of Ultron and he just didn't pick it up, you know? But even then, how does that not make him worthy? He got ran over by a car. He was technically a fugitive and they were trying to get him. And they did get him at that point. So, like, what...
But we also don't have confirmation that he was even worthy at that point either. Well, so I'm just saying to make this argument, even if it wasn't right, or even if it was, like, right on the money, doesn't make any sense. It's like the Thor one. It's an out-of-context point from before he even picked it up.
Stupid. So I won't waste any more time on it. It just bothered me because it's like, why use this stuff in an article to kind of like prove your point?
Well, and I think just like I'm sure there actually are arguments for why Captain Marvel could lift it.
Sure.
That maybe are constructive, and just like you can cherry pick the hell out of this this social media post and show all these idiots, dude, who are totally defending every.
But I'm a dude, bro.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I'm saying is like this article writer,
I'm fragile.
Mr. Price, can show all of these cherry-picked arguments of like basically defending her and showing like why Captain Marvel's in the right, but we can do the same thing and just cherry-pick apart those arguments. Anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. Like I can pick the stupidest looking person on social media out of what they're saying, which I think we did. I'm calling you out. And just totally annihilate them and take them apart. Anyone can do that. You're not clever.
No.
But what do I know? I'm a dude, bro. And you're just the kid who got beaten up in high school because you wanted to get laid.
That's right.
Moving on.
Yeah. Moving on to... so we're shifting away from Marvel right back into our stable, lovable DCEU. We now move into...
Stable? It's stable or staple? Because it's our staple, or at least it was, but is it stable?
Doesn't matter.
I don't know. We got Joaquin Phoenix. What do you got? No Spider-Man,
losers. Yeah, boo! So, the big thing that we want to talk about with the DCEU is the Snyder Cut. We've never really discussed it on the channel.
Shout out to our boy Jack in the comments who suggested that we talk about the Snyder Cut.
We appreciate you. So,
we actually do. Please tell us more things you want to hear.
We do, really, yeah. With the Snyder Cut, so it came out recently, I think within the last week, that Jason Momoa said it was sick, as a real dude bro would, as we'll continue to say. And by continuing,
do you think he's fragile?
We're stopping now.
Do you think he's fragile?
He's got to be fragile, dude. He's got to be. So, I mean, with the Snyder Cut, we just kind of wanted to go over what we know about it. Kind of, there were some new details, actually, that we were surprised to see a little bit of today, that we thought was kind of interesting and cool to see. that was just released hours ago while we're filming this podcast. So we kind of wanted to go into that and just kind of the new stuff about the Snyder Cut. So the new things that we saw that just came out that were posted from an interview with, I believe it's Fabian Wagner on Comic Book Debate. It's another YouTube channel. And it was
not as good as Degenerate, but it's close enough.
It's close, dude. So then, I mean, it was a 46-minute interview, but just the highlights kind of say that Zack cut the first 3 trailers. VFX were missing in a lot of areas when Zack left. Darkseid was shot in LA, but the physical actor wasn't Porter. I don't know who Porter is, actually. And then they started JL thinking
the voice actor. Porter was the voice actor for Darkseid, from my understanding.
No, I was saying the first name. I don't know his first name.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then they started JL thinking of JL too.
So we know a lot more than we did. We actually have a whole list, too, to run through after this. But this is interesting to me in the sense that there is more of a behind-the-scenes look to it. That said, this isn't a lot of the actual information of what's different. It's just kind of showing us that there was a lot going on behind the scenes and that it didn't end as quickly as we were led to believe. Because kind of before, it seems like we were led to believe that there was no Snyder Cut.
Right.
That it really didn't exist.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's the opposite. It seems like it does exist, just no one wants to release it.
Exactly.
Which is weird, because what do you have to lose? Like, most people didn't like Justice League that much.
Yeah, throw it out there. Maybe people love it, and then, I don't know.
Or maybe they don't like it, and it's the same boat you're in right now. I mean, you basically canned the franchise anyway of the Justice League. What do you care?
You don't lose.
You could make more money off a re-release anyway.
You definitely could, yeah. One thing that we just wanted to go over was some of the older news right away, just to kind of establish a bit of a foundation. So, starting out, Snyder Cut-wise, it's reported, we get this from Screen Rant, it was like roughly almost a year ago, basically, so it's older news. So, they said that the original Snyder Cut was 3 hours long, and they cut an hour and a half of that out, and then messed with the remaining hour and a half. And then I did some more reshoots. I think they did like 30 minutes of reshoots as well. So it was just, as it's reported here, a Frankenstein project. They basically pulled it apart and just kind of messed with what was left.
Yeah, they weeded the DNA into it.
They really did. Yeah, they really did. So I mean, it was a complete just teardown essentially. But there's some debate about whether or not this is true. But it's believed that Snyder completed 100% of principal photography before he left.
So can you explain that too? Because principal photography is really just like he made the movie. They needed to go over it with VFX.
Right. They needed to do like post-production stuff.
Yeah, all the effects, everything. So when you see a scene in the MCU, like you see Robert Downey Jr. standing there in the Iron Man suit, he might be standing there in a shirt that has some spots of green screen on it for them to fill it in with the suit. He might have a chest piece on. Maybe he has a helmet on and like mostly arms and then some green screen on that. And that's all principal photography. They shot the scene with RDJ. Now they push it out there to the effects and they put in all the extra stuff. Like the scene against Thanos, you'd see all of the Iron Man suit movement, all the blasts. You would see Thanos, obviously, because it's CGI over Josh Brolin. It looks totally different after you do those things. So really, they could have made a Snyder Cut without Whedon at all. Just they could have stuck with it and been done. They didn't need to pivot when Snyder left.
No, they didn't at all. No, and I mean, that's what they're saying, that they had all of, and by they I mean storyboard artist Jay Oliva and cyborg actor Ray Fisher. They both said that they had all the footage they needed to complete the cut of the movie and move it on to post-production and then release it. So it was essentially done, aside from all of, obviously, the extras and making it into the movie that it's supposed to look like. So that's kind of a bummer right away.
Yeah, because that's different than we were led to believe, I feel like.
Yes, it is. And just some other stuff. I mean, they mess with kind of like the parademons and like how they hate sirens and how they smell fear. The opening credits were all Joss Whedon. From what it says, Lex Luthor's role was going to be different. But yeah, so I mean...
You mean he was going to have a role?
So yeah. So it's not it's not clear how much was cut, but it's said that people know that Batman was using his journal because we see it in a couple scenes, and he also makes a reference to it at one point. So the journal contains information about mother boxes Luthor didn't learn about until the end of BVS. So I mean, it's just like references, I guess, that would have been there.
They would have used what Luthor was working on in BVS to build the foundations of this. Like, it would have been Bruce going off of Luthor's intel because that's the best he's got to like try to fight against the parademon threat.
Right. Superman's story was almost entirely reshot, so that was entirely different than what came out in the end product.
Oh man, that's too bad, because that's the thing that's like one of the most disappointing things to me is we're assuming you've all seen Justice League. Just giving him amnesia, giving him some of the epic lines from Bruce from the previous movie and a fake lip and saying, here you go, here's your character arc is bad.
Yeah.
It's a really bad hack job of the whole death of Superman, honestly. Like, really bad.
Yeah, and they wasted that storyline.
It could have been a whole movie. It could have been Man of Steel too.
Yeah, it's a great storyline.
I love BVS, the Ultimate Cut. I still love it. Like, I have gotten to the point where I can admit its flaws. I can, but I still love the movie. They probably shouldn't have killed Superman in BVS, personal opinion, because if they were going to, they should have left him dead longer. Or they should have let Snyder see his whole thing through, because maybe he would have brought him back better, like in a better Death of Superman arc. I don't know. But it's weird that that's split into two things, and it's a hack job.
It is. Yeah, it's honestly a bummer, too. With Darkseid, he actually would have played an important role in the movie, which is...
You mean a role?
A role at all, yeah. But he would have also been an important part of the movie. So one scene that is confirmed that we would have seen is a reference, at least, where Wonder Woman explores a shrine that contains murals of an ancient invasion of Earth. On that mural, there's an image of Darkseid leading his parademons, along with Greek text describing the events of the battle. So, once again, this is all from Screen Rant.
So, story time with Wonder Woman would have happened.
Essentially, yeah. And a cutscene, I'm sure, where, showed the battle or him conquering.
I mean, that's actually kind of neat, because it would have established that Darkseid had been to Earth before and actually had a reason to come back.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. In the film, you see Steppenwolf leading said battle, and it's like you see the Green Lanterns really quickly. You see this just crazy, insane battle, and Steppenwolf is leading it. In Snyder's cut, it's Darkseid. So
that would have made more sense, because isn't Steppenwolf generally he's like a herald? Mm-hmm. He's like a herald to Darkseid,
right?
Kind of like Ebony Maw is to Thanos,
exactly.
So for you to just act like Darkseid's never been there before, and you're trying to build him up as a big threat, doesn't make much sense. Because Darkseid returning is a lot bigger than who's this Darkseid guy? I'm sure he'll show up at some point.
Right.
These are just bad changes that they made.
They're bad. I mean, here's another big one that I didn't even realize, but Cyborg's origins and backstory were completely cut, really. So, I mean, we get a small idea of what happened, and you see it in BVS, to be honest, what happened. And that's his origin story. Because in before Justice League's release, Snyder said that Cyborg was going to be the heart of the movie.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it says this in this article, because I didn't read all the way to the bottom, but do they talk about his death? Because they were going to kill him, from what I had read as well.
Oh, see, that I didn't know.
That came out more recently, was that they were building him up as a sympathetic character and that he was going to die. When Zack Snyder was talking about it, was that, likely him and Aquaman, or at least just him, was going to die, murdered in the Batcave by the forces of Darkseid in this movie.
See, that's interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was going to kind of be a devastating blow to the League, but also rally them together in a way again.
Right.
Would be that when Darkseid invaded and Batman was out of the Batcave, at the very least I remember that Cyborg was in it, and it might have been Aquaman too. They were both in the Batcave, and they were going to be killed, and then that was going to be used as a linchpin to bring the whole team together.
Well, and speculating, obviously, just of what could have been, if they were thinking of Justice League 2, maybe that's a part, kind of like an Infinity War, where they leave the first movie, Cyborg dies, they're in a really bad spot, and then it's all right, Justice League 2, they have to try to fight Darkseid again. They have to go back after him. So it's disappointing what could have been, man. I mean, just to think about what all this could have been, how much more content we would have gotten, and how it wouldn't have felt like it was just patched together, I mean, it's insane. Flash's backstory would have been there more. I mean, Aquaman, there was a more of a backstory. We got his own movie, so that worked out at least. There was a lot more that we could have gotten out of this.
There really was too, and the fact that Aquaman's meeting up with Mira was longer, and it had included Willem Dafoe before. That's another thing, because we're both reading off of separate articles here too.
Yeah, yep.
So that's one of the things, and there's also like more with Aquaman and Atlantis in that movie to build it up before the Aquaman film, and they pulled it out. It feels like there was a lot. I know it was already going to be rushed, like to try to build up your universe in 3 movies, but there was more to build up that universe in the Snyder version. They got a guy who they brought him in to build a universe and then basically canned him before he could.
Or, well, he had to step away, and then they just, like, said, all right, well, we're changing everything then, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, why? Because he was already done. So to me, I don't even know if he really... Was it entirely his choice to step away? I know everything that happened with his family, but I almost wonder if he was kind of pushed that direction a little bit because they were so ready to pivot.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just hard to tell.
Last thing I wanted to add in, I think there might even be more here, but just kind of the last thing I wanted to just touch on was that the Atom was cut as well. The character of the Atom, I think he's going to be played by Ryan Choi. So, or no, I'm sorry, that's the character himself. But I mean, he was cut. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in this. They could have added in more characters, maybe Justice League 2. There's obviously a million different directions that this just didn't go.
And can I point out one other direction too? They actually tied it better into BVS. Because the article I'm reading too, also from comicbookmovie.com, but I think it's an earlier article, was that the nightmare that Bruce had in the Batcave, before seeing the Flash from the future, that was actually tied into Justice League, and they were going to reference it. Basically, it was that Batman was going to come to the conclusion that Darkseid was able to raise the dead and turn them into parademons. So he was able to convert them into parademons that Steppenwolf and Darkseid could then control. And essentially that in this apocalyptic future, Superman stayed dead and was raised by Darkseid.
That's insane.
That's why he joined Darkseid. That was kind of the idea. So basically Batman's solution then was that they need to get Superman back before Steppenwolf or Darkseid can. That's why they need to make sure to raise, to bring him back so he doesn't just stay gone.
Right.
And they cut all of this. It's all just gone. It made the movie empty and hollow. They didn't really show anything. They could have had this whole escape from Arkham with Lex Luthor right in the middle of the film. They would have had Deathstroke in it as well.
There's so much content that we just don't get. And
Cyborg did die.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, attempting to separate the mother boxes as well. That's a different one. So it's weird because there's essentially that Cyborg tried to separate the mother boxes apart from each other, and Steppenwolf just tears him in half, leaving him dead in the Batcave.
I love that.
Yeah, it's insanely dark. Yeah. There's a ton to it, and they scrapped all of it. And I guess that's really... I don't know if I want to read any more changes. I'm getting kind of depressed.
Yeah. No.
But how do you feel about this? Because I feel this way. I guess I feel the way you do. I would like to see it. I'm not... I wouldn't say I'm super passionate about it to the point of some people. I wish I was. The only reason I'm not is because I feel like even if they bring it back, they've decanonized it now and made it so they'll never go this direction. And I guess I'm afraid if we see this, what if it's way better and we just see more of what could have been?
Yeah, that's what. To be honest, I'd rather have it, and be able to at least see it, because all of the work that went into that, and all of the content that was there, all the stuff that we're missing out on, that sounds like. So what I think happened is they had concerns about how dark it was, and looking at their rivals, I guess you could say, the MCU.
Yeah, they're rivals.
Right,
sure.
Right, if you can even call it that. Trying to at least stay in the ballpark of what they're doing, which I think was a big mistake. Because they went and it had these dark themes from Snyder still. But then it also felt like it was trying to be like the Justice League cartoon at times, which was weird. Like it went from what sounds like kind of like a Watchmen toned down, I guess.
Watchmen and BVS mixed together. Almost.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't even know if you'd say toned down. Watchmen's dark, but like nobody gets ripped in half.
Yeah, I mean, there's some dark stuff, but
there is some really dark stuff. I think Watchmen's probably darker, but I'm saying that like this is not far off from that.
No, and
all they need is an attempted rape, and they're at Watchmen levels.
Right,
that's all we need.
Yeah,
we don't want it, but that's all we need.
But I mean, if you wanted to do it, no, please don't do that. So I mean,
please don't.
But I mean, it's disappointing, I guess, because for them to go back and just kind of make a movie that ended up not working, and not even giving this huge movie a chance for people to absorb. Because really these movies were directed at the diehard fans in the first place. The MCU, I feel like, is more directed at the general audience.
Yeah, these were not meant to be quite as general.
No, and so these were a lot more intensive towards, hardcore, even I'd say comic book fans, but even just really intense comic fans and fans of the characters.
And even people like you who maybe, I mean, you've read comics, you've read more than a lot of people, but less than a lot of others.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy the characters based on the visual mediums.
Exactly.
It's people with a history with it, of some kind.
Exactly. And for them to kind of go from this really dark thing and then try to fix it, and at times, I mean, they went almost too campy, it felt like, for the vibes that they were, because if they were going to go campy, go full campy. And it wasn't like that. The film was just, for me, it was kind of all over the place, and it was tough to read what they were doing, and Steppenwolf was a weird villain that just didn't really have any roots at all. They didn't build him up. It was just, for what it could have been, and looking back, I haven't watched it since I saw it in theaters, to be honest. I think it's been that long, and I don't know.
Do you want to now?
I kind of want to watch it again.
Less? I don't know. It's hard once you see like what you're missing out on.
Yeah, I kind of want to see it again just because I forgot a little bit about it, but I do remember wanting to like it so bad, and for it to, this is going to sound horribly depressing, but I mean, I walked into that theater wanting more than anything to love that movie, and it was just, I kept, on the drive home, it was like, well, I could look past that. I'll look past that. And then eventually it was like, there's just a lot that was just fine about that movie.
You're me with Spider-Man 3, except this isn't a meme to you.
Right. Right, yeah.
Because this was me at Spider-Man 3. I saw 2, and I know this is going back to Spider-Man and Sony, but I saw 1 and 2 with Tobey Maguire. Loved them both. I saw 3, and I went home, and I'm like, that sucked. Like, I really wanted to think it was good. And it's sad because just like Justice League, there's the skeleton of a really good movie in there. There's stuff in there that's fantastic.
I think that's the hardest part. If it was just a start
Total
to finish
crap fest.
awful, and if it wasn't like, we got really good moments from Henry Cavill as Superman. We got really good moments from Batfleck. Wonder Woman, obviously great. So like they had great characters that like there were moments that I loved from them,
Or seeing the lanterns.
Exactly. Like there was stuff that was great and that like brought me back to watching those animated series as a kid, and it was fantastic. But then I guess looking at the film as a whole, it's just even more depressing seeing this now. So I get why people want to see the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, and I think we do too.
I really, really do now,
Yeah.
And it's older news. It's not like we're breaking news here, but we just wanted to talk about it because we never have.
Yeah.
And it was honestly, I learned a lot from it because I had never read this stuff before. And it's, I didn't really understand the hype as much before. Reading about it, I do. And I want it,
I understand the hype too. I think it's hard to be ridiculously passionate about it when it feels like they've gone so far to kill it, as far as like just decanonizing it, pushing it to the side, ignoring it. And I don't know, even if they released it, if they would ever acknowledge it as like existing in continuity. I don't know what their continuity is going to be now. Like, I don't know if Aquaman or Wonder Woman will ever reference Batfleck at all, or anything, because that's gone. I don't know, but I guess I can still enjoy those movies, and they're maybe never going to be brought up again, so I could enjoy this. I think people are clamoring for it. They're willing to give you money for it. I've never understood this about business, when people want to throw their money at you and you say no to them. It's seems really anti-business to me.
Right.
You have nothing to lose, DC and Warner. Like, look at what you've done.
Yeah.
with your universe. You have nothing to lose. You were willing to release Suicide Squad.
You're making a new
Isn't
one.
that enough?
Yeah, you're making a new one too. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday. Maybe not, but hopefully we see it.
I hope so. Yeah.
There's a couple more little things. These are just bits of game news that we have. I feel like this is just turning into a film podcast at some points.
Right.
Depending on the week, because sometimes there's just nothing with video games, or at least nothing that matters. It'll be like, developer said the N-word. And it's like, oh, wow, what news we want to talk about?
That's
Somebody
bad.
said something really racist. It's like, or a YouTuber accidentally said homophobic slur. It's like, wow, great news.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. That a lot of times we see that. It's
Right.
like influencer news and not games news.
100%. Well, and I think that'll change too in the next month when games start coming out, you know?
I really hope so.
It's really starting
Sony PlayStation 5 says the N-word when it boots up. It's just it's like the game consoles are going to become racist and homophobic themselves. The AI has like absorbed like all the trash from the internet.
Right.
I'm depressing myself. Can we move on?
We need to.
So the PlayStation 5 is possibly going to happen at some point. I'm just kidding. I started the Batman thing that way, so I wanted to harken back.
Right.
There was a dev kit leaked on the PlayStation 5. And we wouldn't have known that this was actually a dev kit except a developer, Matthew Stott, on Twitter, said that it's a dev kit, and we have some in the office. Sony patent shows PlayStation 5, So he basically was saying like that this is a dev kit, the designs that were leaked.
Okay.
It's really powerful. The power of it is debatable as far as like what it'll actually do, but really it kind of came down to 8K graphics support, ray tracing, which is a big PC gaming thing. There's really an impressive graphics like capabilities in here other than just the pixel output. Like what it'll look like and how it'll perform is pretty incredible. That said, we can't see it in action yet, so a lot of it's speculation as well. It had like a ventilated design. It looked like a V, but it also had that in the patents that I was seeing as well. So like some people are thinking the PlayStation 5 will be called like the PSV instead of the number 4, like a Roman numeral for 5.
Okay, yeah.
We don't know that. That would actually harken back to the PSX, which was the PlayStation 1. So it's possible.
Okay.
It's also possible they could throw that out completely because the Nintendo DS was going to be called the Nitro up to, less than a year before it was being released. And sometimes that stuff just changes.
Right.
All of a sudden. So the name thing could go either way.
I did hear though that, not to interrupt, but I heard that like load time wise, it was gonna be crazy. So like I
did hear that.
There was something where it was like loading, waiting for Marvel Spider-Man to load was like 15 seconds right now on the PS4 Pro. On this, it's like 0.8 seconds is what they're saying. So which is
also a last gen game.
True.
I'm so
very true. Yeah.
But I just farted with my mouth there. I'm trying to say but.
Dude, disgusting, bro.
But, if it's that quick, I'm sure it would be, 5 seconds-ish, maybe with, like, new games.
Which
like,
is still great.
Nothing.
Great. I'm curious what the price is going to be.
I've seen conflicting information on that all over the place, and we don't have an actual like, full-on thing. I want to say, so with a grain of salt, the PS5... I can't find the actual price of the chip that they're saying will be in it, but I was reading earlier that the price point of 8K capable chips is worth more than $500 for just the chip.
Oh, gosh.
So I don't know what this would be worth. It's also very possible they'd just straight up sell it at a loss. Sony's done that a bunch of times. Sold consoles at a loss. Like, almost every time they release a new console, it's at a loss for a while. PS4, from what I remember, was that way. PlayStation 1 was that way immediately. Was at a loss in order to sell the actual games and make money that way.
Okay.
So you have to remember that Sony, they own the rights to Blu-ray discs still.
What?
Yeah, Sony owns Blu-ray discs. What I don't know about is 4K Blu-ray. I don't think they own that. So I don't know if this is playing on 4K Blu-ray discs or not, which it seems like it would be.
You would think, yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's games right now that, like, Spider-Man on the PS4 Pro, right? I know it's not native 4K, but it's upscaled to 4K and it's playing off a normal Blu-ray disc. And I didn't know Blu-rays were capable of 4K.
I didn't either. Yeah.
So I don't know how they'll do this. If it'll be a match, like a mix and match of like discs along with downloading 8K textures. Like I've seen that before too. This is like a digging really deep here into like a really old wound. But Splinter Cell, the series that the Tom Clancy company for some reason wants to pretend is dead and doesn't exist, and Ubisoft won't make more games for. Blacklist, when it came out on the Xbox 360, had HD texture packs you could just straight up download. And it was a game that originally also performed in 720p, and now it performs at 4K on the Xbox One. And you can put a disc in that was like a DVD, and then download a lot of that data from the disc, and download some of it from the internet, and then you're at 4K. I don't know, it could be like a Frankenstein-y thing like that, or it could just be all right off disc.
Well, and my concern is, does that mean the price of like potential 4K or 8K games is going to be quite a bit more than what we're seeing now at $60?
Really, games should be worth more already. Because,
For sure.
Because we're at the point, too, where games publishers... Trust me, I'm the guy just as much as the next guy who loves to pick up a game for $5, but games publishers are subsidizing lost revenue with microtransactions. That's one of the reasons they kind of started doing it, was losing money on the game itself. Like, the profit margins have been decreasing as games get more expensive to make. And that's the way they found, and lo and behold, that made them more money, so it's here to stay. So, like, microtransactions becoming so big are, in a way, not our fault, but they're because we don't have unlimited money and we don't want to pay more than $60 for a game. And they should be worth more than that. So the games could go up. We don't know. I'd be really surprised if this console was less than $500. I personally... I saw... This is insanity. I saw one estimate at $800, and I don't believe that at all. Because as a mass market tool for games, I just don't see that happening.
That's pretty high.
But I wouldn't personally be surprised if this launched at $550.
No, especially with the specs that they're putting into it. You know,
$550, $600. I going above $600 seems like market suicide, because gamers are, I don't want to call us cheapskates, but frugal people.
Yes.
Frugal individuals who enjoy to not blow all our money. And you have the fact that I can go build a future-proof for quite a while PC for less than $1,000. Or I could, pay this much for this. You can't, because consoles do go bad after a while, as far as like there's an updated released console to replace it. PCs, you can swap parts out.
That's true.
So they need to be competitive. You can't have to pay for a PC to get a console, is all I'm saying. At that point, the gamer could just make their own machine. They'd miss out on a couple exclusives, but they'd live. So you need to be competitive in that marketplace with price, especially with how cheap PC games are. PC games on Steam sale, it's like $5 for a AAA game. It's insanity. You don't really see that much on the PS Store or the Xbox Store.
Not much.
You see good deals, but not that good. Not Steam sale good, usually. So I just don't know what to make of this. Like, it's exciting about the PlayStation 5, but we just don't know the price. We don't really know what it's going to do. We know the dev kit. That's it. Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is connected to it as well.
Not to really get into it too much, but Insomniac was also acquired by Sony recently. They recently came out with a statement, just said basically how they're excited about it. I think they used the word homecoming even, so the cheeky devils themselves.
I think this is connected to two things. I think this is connected to Spider-Man, first off, which I'd like to throw out there, because this is Sony also not only securing a future home for Spider-Man games, in my opinion, because I don't think Marvel's Insomniac's Spider-Man will be the only Spider-Man we'll see from Insomniac. Pretty sure they'll make more. That was a money printer. But I also think that they are securing Spider-Man as an IP, Sony, because we've got him on our consoles and Microsoft doesn't have him, and we've got him in our movies and Marvel doesn't have him. Isn't it weird that it's like the same day that like the impasse happened, that they acquired Insomniac? Or
it's getting kind of weird.
It became public knowledge that day. It is kind of weird. It's like Sony now has like full control of Spider-Man. They just don't have the comics or the toys.
But these are the big media markets, though.
Yes, the comics are nothing compared to the movies.
Right.
They really are nothing.
Yeah.
A comic will sell a couple 100,000 if it's really good. A couple 100,000 issues for $4 or $5 a piece. A movie will sell $9 tickets, millions of them.
Yeah. And sometimes multiple times. You know, like people go see the movie a few times. So, I mean, yeah, you're looking at, billions compared to millions. So
yeah,
it's a big difference.
The movie and games industry, now Sony controls Spider-Man in those markets.
And they had DLC with that game too, and so they basically, I don't want to say monopolized, but just kind of re-secured those media markets, which is important for Sony. But it'll be interesting to see where Spider-Man goes, I guess.
It's just so funny to me that no one has a problem with this with the game, but it's because the game was so good.
Yeah.
Like Insomniac Spider-Man, the thing is Sony as the gaming company, they're not really that hands-on with their exclusives. A lot of times they give it to the boys downstairs, who are making it. Boys and girls. And all other genders. Because I don't want to get called out in like a video for just being too over the top here.
Yeah.
But they'll give it to them and say, okay, now you make us a good game. Have fun, kiddos. And they leave. Like that's been reported on by a lot of studios, is that Sony's great to work with because they'll foot a bill and say, go to town, and as long as you do a good job, they're happy with it. Which, good on them, by the way. That's a great way to treat your developers.
For sure.
You should treat them that way. That's very different than certain other companies treat their underlings, employees.
Right.
But they are okay with this because the Sony Games Company is, even though it's under the Sony umbrella, it's different than the Sony Movies Company. They are different people under the same parent company. But they have now got Spider-Man just under that umbrella. And I think that's worth remembering, is that now pretty much one person other than the comics has control of any visual representation of Spider-Man. That could be a good thing in some ways, like the games. Could be a bad thing in other ways, like with the movies. I guess time will tell.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah, I 100% agree. It'll just be a matter of time. And so far, we have nothing to complain about as far as quality that we're getting.
No, we haven't gotten a Spider-Man movie since the split because it's been a day.
Right.
And we haven't gotten a Spider-Man game since before the split or the snap.
Right.
Right. Because, I guess it was around the time of the snap.
Yeah.
When we got the first one. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. If I get good Spider-Man games, I hate to say this, but 1 out of 2 ain't bad. If the Insomniac Spider-Man in their own universe stays as good or better than it's been, I'm okay with them just taking Insomniac and having the rights to that. But I don't know on the movie front. We'll have to see. I think it's good for the PlayStation 5, though, to have Insomniac.
I agree. Yeah, I think that'll be a great way. Because then, seeing New York in 4K, 8K is ridiculous. Those TVs are like $8,000.
I don't even have an 8K TV. I have a 4K TV, and it's not even the best one of those.
Not many people have 8K TVs. They're like $8,000.
Most people don't even have 4K yet.
No. So, it's like, that game, even in 4K, looks great. So, another one somehow in 8K would be insane. So, it is really exciting to think about. And yeah, like you said, wait and see.
Yeah, wait and see. Don't get too upset, or I would even say excited in the game front, because we don't know when another Marvel Spider-Man will happen. But hopefully soon, sooner than later, because it's a fantastic game. Let's wrap up our weeks really super quick here so we can actually get back to playing Arkham.
Of course.
What have you been up to? Have you watched anything? You said you finished The Boys. You loved it.
Yeah, The Boys was the big thing. So we finished Stranger Things. That was fantastic.
I've never seen any of it. Should I watch it?
Lovely. Yeah. And by lovely, just great, dude. It's every single season it's got an incredible amount of charm. The characters are funny. The storytelling is great. There's really only one episode in the entire series that I was like, what's going on here? That's weird. And that's out of the entire 3 seasons. So it's a great show. There's a little bit of horror, but not a ton. Season 3.
So someone like you is not a horror fan. It's not a problem. But someone like me who is a horror fan, is there enough of that I would get a kick out of it?
I think so. Yeah, okay. For sure. Yeah, season 3 is where it gets quite a bit more gory than what you would expect, but it's great. And then The Boys, I finally got a chance to finish it, and it's great. It's basically, I think I've said it before, it's if superheroes were just kind of like almost corrupt politicians, almost is kind of the way that they frame them out to be, and it's fascinating. They do it, and they don't really hide the fact that they basically took the Justice League and changed their names and kind of made them like douchier. So
is there a Batman?
There is. His name is Black Noir.
And does he not have powers?
No, not at all.
Is there a single character in this? Is there a single superhero in the world of this show that is good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
So there is good ones. It's just that there's like it's called the Seven is the like the big ones, and so it's like their name's Homelander, which is Superman.
Yeah.
The Deep, Aquaman. I think it's Queen Maeve, Wonder Woman. You know, so like they've got like all of these characters. A-Train is the Flash. So it's like they have like these characters that like are the worst. But then there's also these like it's from the civilian's point of view almost. So you're with these characters that are like trying to basically not to spoil anything really, but they're up against the superheroes. So it's kind of from that perspective.
And showing basically what it's like to live your life in fear in a way.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's great. They already greenlit a season 2, so I can't wait.
I feel like every week is you talking about The Boys.
I
like
love
you've made more
The
progress
Boys.
on The Boys.
I finished it now, so shut the frick up. Yeah.
Well, to bring back something else from last week, I've been watching more Supernatural. I'm on season 11 now.
Okay.
Out of 15. You should watch that.
I
know it's a lot, but it's really good. And it would be something to watch with the wifey because
You're right. Yeah.
it actually is, it has horror elements. It's not so scary that you wouldn't enjoy it, but it has enough. And it has really good characters, a good bromance between the Winchester brothers. It's fantastic. I love it.
I like that.
Season 11 is the best it's been since season 5, which I can't talk about the arc in season 5 because it's everything post season 4 is connected in different ways to the seasons 4 and 5 arc, so I gotta be careful what I say about it for anyone who hasn't seen it. But essentially they've brought back one of the best villains from the show ever that seemed like he was going to be gone for good, and he's back, and he's a different character now. Like, he's a different actor. But it makes sense because these are demons and, you know, like other like supernatural entities. So he's in a different human being. But like the Winchesters don't know it. So they think this is their friend. And it's actually the main villain from like a previous season.
Interesting.
Is hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And they don't know about it.
That's insane.
And he's off doing his own thing. And then he shows up and pretends to be the guy that they knew. Like during other episodes.
Oh, that's weird.
It's really weird and really cool. And they've tied in like a lot of like Judeo-Christian stuff like this season especially, which they hadn't done in a while. There's just like, there's a lot to it. I would say Supernatural is the best lore in a television series I've ever seen.
Wow. Okay.
Lore. I'm not saying storytelling always, because there's seasons that are not nearly as good as others, where the show is trying to find its footing. But it has one of the most complicated, complex worlds in any TV series or movie franchise even that I've ever seen, because it draws on source religious material from like every major world religion and like minor ones. It's basically a world where what if everything paranormal ever was real? That's what it is.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And it's fantastic because of it. It's like if you can think of it, if you can think of some obscure god, it exists in some form. Maybe it's a psycho monster that murdered and ate people, but it's out there. So it's a terrifying, crazy world, but super cool. So I've been loving that. And I've been playing Halo a little bit again with a friend. I've been playing the Master Chief Collection, playing through Spartan Ops. That's fun. It's more fun to play with a friend than it is to play it.
Okay.
The Halo 4 had a great campaign and not a lot else going for it, so I don't really know what to tell you there.
Right.
But other than that, and us doing our Let's Plays, I haven't played a lot. Pokemon Crystal, I'm at 7 badges now.
Okay.
So I'm making progress.
You're climbing the ranks.
And my Ultimate Alliance 2 review is almost done. Probably will be out before the full podcast, so it's weird to put here, but almost done.
That's exciting too. Yeah. I'm excited to see that.
That's really it. Working too much.
I feel you there.
Both of us.
Yeah, I feel you there, dude.
Anything else?
No, I think it was a pretty good week of news actually. I think
it
last
was.
week we were struggling for stuff last week.
Well,
so
I
this
mean,
week...
you got to have your 20-minute obligatory Brie Larson smash.
That's right. We'll see you next week for Brie Larson news.
Yeah, today we were easy on you. We'll be back.
Yeah, don't you worry. Yeah.
So anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast. We will see you in the future on the channel. Please let us know if there's anything you want us to cover in the future. Like we said, the whole Snyder Cut thing was from a subscriber request. We love that stuff. It's nice to not feel like we're out in the void by ourselves. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.